If you are over 60 and you have been feeling off lately, not dramatically ill, not sick enough to call a doctor, just persistently, inexplicably off, there is something you need to hear right now. The fatigue that sleep does not fix. The tingling in your hands and feet that comes and goes. The memory lapses that are happening more frequently than you are comfortable admitting. The depression that settled in quietly and that you have been attributing to life circumstances. The dizziness that hits you when you stand up too fast. Most people over 60 who experience these symptoms do the same thing. They accept them. They tell themselves this is simply what getting older feels like. They adjust their lives around the limitations and they stop expecting to feel well. And that acceptance, that quiet resignation, may be the most dangerous thing happening to their health right now. Because in a significant number of cases, these symptoms are not the inevitable consequence of aging. They are the consequence of a deficiency, a specific, measurable, correctable deficiency that the majority of adults over 60 are walking around with right now without any idea. And left unaddressed, left unidentified for months or years while the body continues sending increasingly urgent signals, this deficiency does not plateau. It progresses. It affects your nervous system in ways that become harder to reverse the longer they are ignored. It affects your heart, your brain, your vision, your ability to walk steadily, your ability to think clearly. And the terrifying part is this. Standard blood tests frequently miss it. Your doctor may have looked at your results recently and told you everything looks fine. And by conventional testing parameters, it did. But the threshold at which most labs flag a deficiency is set far below the level at which neurological symptoms begin appearing in adults over 60, which means millions of people are being told they are fine, while their nervous system is quietly being damaged. We are talking about B vitamins, specifically the cluster of B vitamins that the aging body becomes progressively less able to absorb, produce, and utilize, and the 10 signs that your body is sending right now that it is running critically low. I am going to walk you through all 10. I have saved the most serious ones for the second half of this video, because they are the ones most likely to be misdiagnosed, most likely to be overlooked, and most likely to cause permanent damage if the connection is not made in time. Stay until the end. This information could genuinely change what happens to you in the next 5 years. Before we go any further, I want to ask you one simple question, and I want you to answer honestly in the comments below. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your energy levels on a typical morning when you first wake up? 1 being completely exhausted, 10 being genuinely refreshed and ready. Drop your number below right now, because your answer is more connected to what we are about to cover than you might think. And I want to see how many people watching this are experiencing what I suspect. Now, before I walk you through the 10 signs, I need to give you the foundation that makes every single one of them make sense. Because B vitamins are not one thing. They are a family of 8 distinct nutrients: thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, B6, biotin, folate, and B12, each playing a separate and irreplaceable role in keeping your body functioning at the level it needs to after 60. And here is what changes after 60 that makes this conversation so urgent. Your body's ability to absorb B vitamins, particularly B12 and folate, depends heavily on a substance produced in the stomach lining called intrinsic factor. After 60, the stomach lining thins. Intrinsic factor production declines. And even if you are consuming adequate B12 through food, your body may be absorbing only a fraction of what it once did. Simultaneously, many seniors over 60 are taking medications: proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, metformin for blood sugar, certain blood pressure medications, all of which are clinically documented to further deplete B vitamin absorption. The result is a slow, progressive, invisible depletion that does not announce itself with a single dramatic symptom. It announces itself with 10 of them, gradually, over months and years, until the cumulative effect becomes impossible to ignore, by which point, in many cases, some of the damage has already been done. This is why the timing of this conversation matters. Not when the symptoms become severe. Now, while the window to reverse them fully is still open. Stay with me, because the first 5 signs I am going to cover are the ones most commonly dismissed, the ones that doctors hear about and attribute to stress, aging, or lifestyle before the nutritional connection is ever investigated, and I want you to hear them with fresh ears, not as complaints to manage, but as messages to decode. Sign number 1 is persistent fatigue that does not respond to rest. Not tiredness from exertion, not sleepiness from a late night. A deep cellular exhaustion that is present when you wake up, present after a full night of sleep, and present regardless of how little you have done that day. B vitamins, particularly B12, B6, and B2, are essential cofactors in the mitochondrial process that converts food into ATP, the energy currency your cells run on. When B vitamin levels fall below the threshold your mitochondria need, energy production at the cellular level becomes inefficient. Your muscles receive less energy than they require. Your brain receives less than it needs to maintain focus and motivation. And no amount of sleep corrects this, because sleep restores the nervous system, but it cannot compensate for a broken energy production process. The fatigue of B vitamin deficiency has a specific quality that distinguishes it from ordinary tiredness. It is heavy. It is unrelenting. And it is accompanied by a motivational flatness, a sense that nothing feels worth the effort, that is often mistaken for depression. Which brings us directly to sign number 2. Sign number 2 is low mood, depression, or emotional flatness that arrived without a clear external cause. B6, B9, and B12 are the 3 nutrients most directly involved in the synthesis of serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, the neurotransmitters that regulate mood, motivation, emotional resilience, and the feeling of calm. When these 3 B vitamins fall below functional levels, the brain's ability to produce and regulate these neurotransmitters is compromised. The result is not always a dramatic depression with obvious symptoms. More commonly in seniors, it presents as a quiet emotional flatness, a reduced ability to feel pleasure, a growing sense of detachment from things that once mattered, an irritability or anxiety that feels disproportionate to circumstances. Many seniors in this state are prescribed antidepressants, which address the neurotransmitter imbalance downstream, without the upstream nutritional cause ever being investigated. The medication may provide partial relief while the deficiency continues to deepen, and the neurological consequences extend beyond mood into the areas we are about to cover. Rehook. That was 2, and I want you to pay close attention to the next one, because sign number 3 is the one that most doctors attribute to something else entirely, and the misattribution can cost years of unnecessary suffering. Sign number 3 is tingling, numbness, or a burning sensation in the hands and feet. This is one of the most specific and clinically significant indicators of B12 deficiency in particular, and it is almost universally misattributed in seniors. Most people are told it is poor circulation. Some are told it is early diabetic neuropathy. Some are told it is simply nerve compression from posture or aging. And while all of those causes are possible, the B12 connection is checked far less frequently than it should be. Here is the mechanism. B12 is essential for the maintenance of the myelin sheath, the protective coating that surrounds your nerve fibers the way insulation surrounds an electrical wire. When B12 falls below the level the nervous system needs to maintain this sheath, the myelin begins to thin and degrade. The nerves beneath it become exposed. Signals that should travel cleanly along the nerve fiber begin to misfire, leak, or fail to transmit. The result is the tingling, the numbness, the burning, and in more advanced cases, the loss of coordination and balance that makes falls so much more likely in B12 deficient seniors. What makes this sign particularly urgent is the timeline of reversibility. Early myelin degradation, when symptoms are mild and intermittent, is largely reversible with prompt B12 correction. Advanced myelin degradation, when symptoms are constant, bilateral, and accompanied by balance problems, may be only partially reversible even with aggressive supplementation. The window to act is open right now. It will not remain open indefinitely. Sign number 4 is mouth sores, a swollen tongue, or cracks at the corners of the lips. These symptoms are among the most visible and direct physical manifestations of B vitamin deficiency, specifically B2, B3, and B12. The cells that line the mouth and tongue are among the fastest dividing cells in the human body, and they require B vitamins as essential cofactors for healthy replication. When B vitamin levels fall, these cells replicate poorly. The tongue becomes inflamed, a condition called glossitis, taking on a smooth, swollen, almost shiny appearance, and becoming sensitive to hot or acidic foods. The corners of the mouth develop persistent cracks that heal slowly and return quickly, a condition called angular cheilitis that is so consistently associated with B vitamin deficiency that nutritionally trained clinicians use it as a visual diagnostic indicator. Most seniors who develop these symptoms treat them locally, with lip balm, with antifungal creams, with mouthwash, without ever addressing the systemic deficiency driving them. The local symptoms may improve temporarily, but without correcting the underlying deficiency, the cycle continues. Stay with me, because we are now moving into the second half of the 10 signs. And these are the ones I want you to hear most carefully. Because from sign 5 onward, we are talking about symptoms that go beyond discomfort. We are talking about symptoms that affect your independence, your cognitive future, and your cardiovascular risk in ways that the medical system does not always connect back to B vitamins quickly enough. Sign number 5 is heart palpitations, or a noticeable irregular heartbeat at rest. This is the sign that alarms people most, and rightly so. But the B vitamin connection is one that many cardiologists do not investigate as a first step. Here is why it matters. B12 and folate deficiency leads to elevated levels of a compound called homocysteine in the blood. Homocysteine is an amino acid that at normal levels is harmless, but at elevated levels it is directly toxic to the endothelial cells that line your blood vessels and your heart. Elevated homocysteine has been identified in research published in the New England Journal of Medicine as an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease, stroke, and cardiac arrhythmia, rhythm disturbances of the heart. Seniors with undiagnosed B vitamin deficiency frequently present with elevated homocysteine that has been quietly damaging their vascular lining for months or years before the cardiac symptoms become noticeable. The connection between B vitamins and homocysteine is one of the most well-established relationships in cardiovascular nutrition. Yet homocysteine testing is not part of standard cardiac screening in most healthcare systems. If you are experiencing unexplained palpitations, ask your doctor specifically to test your homocysteine levels alongside your B12 and folate status. Sign number 6 is memory lapses, confusion, or a cognitive slowing that feels different from ordinary forgetfulness. There is a specific quality to B vitamin-related cognitive decline that distinguishes it from early dementia, though the two are frequently confused and occasionally coexist. B12 deficiency cognitive symptoms tend to present as a slowing of processing speed, difficulty retrieving words that you know, an increasing difficulty concentrating, and a mental fogginess that is worse in the afternoon and improves somewhat with rest. The mechanism is again the myelin sheath. The same degradation affecting the peripheral nerves in your hands and feet is simultaneously affecting the neural networks in your brain. Research published in the journal Neurology found that seniors with low B12 levels had significantly faster rates of brain volume loss over a 5-year period compared to those with adequate levels. Brain volume loss, not a subtle finding, and one that is directly addressable in its early stages with appropriate B vitamin correction. The cognitive symptoms of B12 deficiency are among the most reversible forms of cognitive decline in older adults, but only when they are identified and addressed before the structural changes become established. Sign number 7 is difficulty walking steadily, unexplained clumsiness, or a new tendency to lose balance. Most seniors and most physicians attribute new-onset balance problems in older adults to inner ear issues, blood pressure changes, or the general physical decline of aging. And again, all of those causes are possible. But B12 deficiency produces a specific syndrome called subacute combined degeneration of the spinal cord, a condition where myelin loss in the posterior columns of the spinal cord disrupts the neural pathways responsible for proprioception, your body's sense of where it is in space. The result is a gait that becomes slightly wider, slightly less confident, with a tendency to feel unsteady, particularly in the dark, or on uneven surfaces where visual compensation for the proprioceptive deficit is reduced. Falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65, and a meaningful proportion of the falls attributed to general frailty or balance decline in seniors are occurring in people whose spinal cord proprioceptive pathways are being degraded by an undetected and correctable B12 deficiency. Sign number 8 is vision changes, specifically a gradual blurring or a sensitivity to light that was not present before. The optic nerve is among the neural structures most sensitive to B12 depletion. A condition called optic neuropathy, inflammation and degradation of the optic nerve, has been documented in cases of severe and prolonged B12 deficiency and produces gradual central vision blurring, color desaturation, and light sensitivity. Most seniors with gradual vision changes attend an optometrist and receive a new prescription. The B12 connection is almost never the first avenue investigated. But for seniors whose vision changes are accompanied by any of the other signs on this list, the neurological picture becomes significantly more coherent when B vitamin status is assessed comprehensively. Sign number 9 is a pale or slightly yellowish skin tone that has developed gradually without obvious cause. B12 deficiency produces a specific type of anemia called megaloblastic anemia, where red blood cells are produced in an abnormal, oversized form that the body destroys before they can complete their normal lifespan. Fewer functional red blood cells means less hemoglobin, and less hemoglobin means the skin loses its healthy color, taking on a pallor, or in some cases a faintly jaundiced yellow tone, as the products of red blood cell breakdown accumulate. This skin change is gradual enough that most seniors, and the people around them, do not notice it as a change at all. It becomes the new normal. But a full blood count showing large, abnormal red blood cells combined with low B12 is a diagnostic picture that points clearly and specifically at the deficiency driving it. Sign number 10, and the one I have been saving deliberately, is a persistent, unexplained shortness of breath during activities that should not cause it. Walking to another room, climbing a single flight of stairs, bending to pick something up. When megaloblastic anemia reduces the oxygen-carrying capacity of the blood, the heart and lungs compensate by working harder to deliver adequate oxygen to tissues during even mild exertion. The result is a breathlessness that most seniors attribute to being out of shape, to getting older, or to a cardiac issue that investigations then fail to clearly identify. The B12 and folate anemia driving the breathlessness is sitting in a blood test that may never be ordered because no one made the connection. This is the sign that most often represents the furthest progression of B vitamin deficiency, the point at which multiple systems have been compromised simultaneously, and the body is no longer able to compensate quietly. If this sign is present alongside 3 or more of the others on this list, please do not wait. Request a full B vitamin panel, a homocysteine level, and a full blood count at your earliest opportunity, and show this list to your physician. Now, what to do? The most bioavailable form of B12 for seniors with reduced intrinsic factor production is methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin, which is the cheaper form found in most standard supplements and which requires an additional conversion step that the aging body performs less efficiently. Sublingual methylcobalamin, dissolved under the tongue rather than swallowed, bypasses the intrinsic factor absorption pathway entirely and delivers B12 directly into the bloodstream through the mucous membrane. For folate, choose methylfolate rather than folic acid, particularly if you carry the MTHFR genetic variant, which reduces the body's ability to convert synthetic folic acid into its active form. For the B complex overall, food sources remain the most synergistic delivery system. Nutritional yeast, eggs, sardines, and grass-fed beef liver are among the most concentrated whole food sources of the full B vitamin complex available. If supplementing, a high-quality B complex that uses methylated forms of both B12 and folate, taken in the morning with food, represents the most evidence-supported approach for adults over 60. These 10 signs are not the inevitable soundtrack of getting older. They are messages. Specific biological, correctable messages from a body that is running low on something it urgently needs. The window to act, to reverse the neurological, cardiovascular, and cognitive consequences before they become permanent, is open right now. This video is for educational purposes only and does not replace the guidance of your physician. But being informed is the first step to having the right conversation. Share this with someone over 60 who has been quietly accepting these symptoms as normal. You may be giving them back something they thought was simply gone. I will see you in the next one.